What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Rangers Central podcast. Today, we are joined by Philk from Big Apple Hockey. If you're not familiar with their work, go check them out. Every Wednesday, they do a show. Mark will perform some beautiful layups. Anthony's dogs will bark and his Wi-Fi will cut out. And then Philk is due to rant about the Rangers. Like, he probably will tonight, like all of us will tonight. And, of course, I'm joined by Matt. I'm not sure if Nick or Nico will be joining later on, but before we jump into everything, because I'm going to be honest, we're not even going to waste time. I have stats off the rip that I'm just going to air out and vent. Before we jump into it, though, leave a like, subscribe. We're on the road to 2K subs. But I don't know which stat I want to start with first, because I have a laundry list of things that are driving me up the fucking wall. They're 12-11 since December 1st. 12-10-1 if you want to be technical, because of the OT loss. In their last 10, they're 4-5-1. They are last in the league in high danger rush chances against. They had 3 last night, 47 rush goals against on the year, averaging about 5 to 7 a game, according to Steve Valiquette. What did he say in the pregame? Last in breakaways, 5 goals on 38 chances. Rangers special teams since Christmas break. They are 18th in the NHL on the power play, and they are 28th in the NHL on the penalty kill. You want this one? This one's even more fun. From New York Style 24, good friend. He sent this in a group chat that I'm in last night. 13 out of the 16 losses, so 81% of the Rangers' losses. The opposition has scored 2 goals within 4 minutes. 9 of the 16 losses, 56%. The opposition has scored 2 goals within 2 minutes. 18 out of the 44 games, 41%, the opposition has scored 2 goals within 4 minutes. And they've allowed multiple goals in 30 seconds, 8 separate times this year. It's a trend. It's a trend. But don't worry, they'll fix it. The leadership is a joke. I'm tired of hearing the same thing. I'm tired of hearing guys like Keandre Miller, every time this guy speaks to the media, I need to be better. I need to be better. That's great. Actions speak louder than words. When are we going to start seeing it on the ice? Laviolette needs to start holding guys accountable, because this play is just terrible. Everybody that wears an A, garbage. Garbage. Nobody right now, and of course, Trouba is the captain. None of these guys deserve to be wearing a letter right now for their play. The Rangers haven't had more than a 7-game winning streak, by the way, since 2015-16, and that was early that season. If you want to just throw that in the fire, too. Steve Valiquette's right last night. They need a players-only meeting. Doesn't matter, though, because what is the leadership group going to say? Because they're clearly content with the way they're playing. And then on top of that, to watch them go play live, you got to spend like $300 to watch them play live. So all that's great, right? All that's great. So there's no issues, though, I'm told. So let's not worry about how Igor Shesterkin has just been way too streaky this year, and pretty alarming that he's been only good against bad teams lately. And that's another point, too. How many more losses are we going to go through from the Rangers where they play a good team, and it's like, oh, well, they played a good team. Shucks. Well, oh, Carolina, you know what? That's a good team. Sucks that they lost there. Oh, Vancouver, you know what? That's a good team. You throw your hands up. Vegas, oh, you know what? Throw your hands up. Even though they had injuries, they're still a good team. Oh, Edmonton, they're getting hot. Oh, well, I mean, that's a good team. How many more losses are we going to go through of them playing good teams and say, oh, well, they played a good team? That just tells me that you're a wild card team at best. Is that not what that tells anyone else? The second line doesn't back check at all. I want to walk you guys through something. So let's walk through everything. So you have Vegas breaking the puck out here on the first goal. Look at this 1-3-1 right here, right? Look at this structure. All right, well, I guess it's fine. It's not going to be that easy to break through, right? You got 2 guys right there. You got Lafreniere and Panarin, and oh, well, they just get behind them. And then, oh, well, great, Lafreniere, look at him on the back check there, and everybody puck watching as per usual. Second goal. All right, this time they're in the 1-3-1. That's just great. Oh, well, how did that pass get through? All right, well, it's fine. Jacob Trouba, I'm sure we'll keep him to the outside, right? Oh, no, he's past Jacob Trouba.
Can I cut you off real quick?
Yeah, you can cut me off.
All right. So, as somebody who plays defense, playing the position for a while, where in the blue hell is Keandre Miller in this picture?
Oh, you mean the guy puck watching like all of them? Yeah.
So you can see the picture on the left-hand side that the guy that's going towards the net is being covered by Capo Caco. Keandre Miller looks like he's in the middle right here where these two are bunched up. Why is Keandre Miller on Jacob Trouba's side of the ice in this play and not where Capo Caco is, where he's supposed to be?
Because that would make sense. That's the only answer that I have there. Because that would be playing competent defense. And yeah, I mean, everybody just look at this.
Why is Chris Krieder back deeper? A winger, by the way. Your wingers are supposed to cover the points. Why is Chris Krieder a winger back deeper in this shot than Mika Zibanejad is, who is the center and is supposed to be the third man down low in an odd man situation like this?
Yeah, and on top of that, just great work on defense. Everybody just, wave your stick. Everybody stick check. And then do I need to say more than this with this goal? I mean, is there more that needs to be said with this one?
This is the biggest thing that pissed me off with defensemen nowadays. When they'll have a guy behind the net, like Mark's, well, not he's behind the net, but there'll be multiple examples in a game where there'll be a guy behind the net or a guy to the side of the net, like Mark Stone is now. Why the fuck is Keandre Miller running out of position to go get Mark Stone? He is not scoring from that position. You stop blocking that passing lane, and look what happens. Mark Stone has an easy pass right to Ivan Barbashev. Boom, back of the net. And of course, the other three guys are just standing around, puck watching, and stick waving like typical Rangers.
It's incredible. It's completely, it's mind blowing. I'm still boggled how this team can go from playing the structured defense that they played up until the Thanksgiving break to playing this kind of
and this too with the fourth goal. Everybody just puck watch.
And how is there a guy right in front of Igor uncovered? Who's that? Is that Gustafson?
I can't. Yep, that's Gustafson. Yeah, and then Schneider's there too.
There's two guys down low. Lafreniere looks like he's trying to go towards the point.
And Trocheck just, he just doesn't care.
Where is Trocheck here? What is he doing?
I counted that play when they were coming up the ice. When Brett Howard enters the zone and he drops the puck back to Korczak, Korczak has 3 seconds of him being able to just skate into the slot like that with nobody contesting him. Takes a shot, Kolosar right there in front of the net. Nobody's picking him up. Boom, 4-0. Just simple mistakes that this team continues to do every single game, and they just won't fix it.
Yeah, I listed the numbers. I gave my piece, and it's just I don't even know anymore. I don't know how people could look at the past 5 years and say this is fine and this is just a rough patch. Steve Alakette saying the same thing. All of us are in agreement pretty much, except for a group of the fan base. I don't know how people aren't seeing this. This has been a 5-year problem. How much longer is it going to be until we start playing or faulting these guys and pointing the finger at them? How much longer is it going to be? Because this has been 3 coaches now. 3. And I'm convinced Scotty Bowman could come out of retirement and coach these guys, and it wouldn't matter because that's how much they don't give a shit, and that's how lazy they are. When they're on their game, they have the talent. They are just not mentally there. They're just not mentally there ever.
Yeah, I've been saying this for the last couple weeks now. I'm done with this core. I'm convinced that, look, they'll try to make additions at the deadline. I just don't see whoever they bring is not going to work. They tried in 2022. They tried to bring in, they brought in Cop, Vetrano, Mott, Braun. Didn't work. Then 2023 with even better players, Tarasenko, Kane, Mikkola, Mott again. Didn't work again. And this year, I don't know what they're going to do, but I've been saying now also, you can keep chopping and changing things like the coaching staff and like the supporting cast of players. But if this core is going to stay intact, then it doesn't matter. This core it's rotten. They need to go in there and extract it, because I can't stand people on Twitter saying, "Oh, but you're only looking at a small sample size." No, look at it from the past 5 years. This core has shown two things: one, weak mentality, and two, not being able to do the simple things of hockey. Going back to the first point, 2020, you got him getting bent over by Carolina in the bubble. 2021, the Tom Wilson incident. 22, blowing a 2-0 lead to the Lightning. 23, blowing a 2-0 lead to the Devils. And now 24, this midseason collapse. And then back to that second point of not being able to do the simple things. We just went over it. Basic, simple defensive breakdowns, both in the defensive zone and neutral zone. They can't defend off the rush. Their transition play, horrible. They can't break the puck out. And their 5v5 play in general is just garbage. I think that this team right now is constructed is a first-round exit. I don't see them getting past anybody in the playoffs as of right now. And if that happens again, the front office needs to realize, okay, maybe sure some of the old coaches like Gallant and Quinn deserve to get fired, but you know what? Maybe it's time we actually look at the core. Maybe these players have to start being held accountable. I'm talking about like guys like Jacob Trouba, this so-called captain, Chris Kreider. I would like to trade Mika Zibanejad, but with his no movement clause, it's probably not going to happen. And look, probably the fan base isn't going to like it, but if there's an opportunity to trade Igor Shesterkin, I'm considering it. I'm not saying I'm going to do it right now, but if all the options fall into place, I'm thinking about it. And Panarin and Fox, I would like to keep. But that's my take on everything right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's just the same things being said year after year, and the comment Steven made is 100% accurate. Doesn't matter who you put with Kreider and Zibanejad. Doesn't matter. Anyone on that top line wouldn't do good enough, and they just continue to run it out there, and Chris Kreider continues to take nights off. Mika Zibanejad continues to not produce at 5v5, and it's somehow even gotten worse, it feels like. So, yeah, I don't know. And Chris Drury doesn't deserve a pass on any of this either, because this is just the guys that he got around the core. Most of them are cooked too. And anytime they bring a guy in, they let him go. That could help potentially be in the top six for the future too.
Jeff Gordon really put him in a bad position with a lot of this stuff.
That too. Jeff Gordon doesn't get a pass either, yeah. But it just feels like we're watching. It feels like we're watching the New York Maple Leafs. The only difference is you get goaltending here. That's the only difference, because they're just throwing darts at a dartboard and hoping that something lands on the bullseye. Oh, Igor, please carry us to a cup. Oh, Panarin, carry us to a cup. What's the identity? Anybody have an answer? Anybody for what the identity is? Because they're not power play merchants anymore either.
So it's like I said last night, inconsistency. That's their identity. If there's one thing you can rely on this team is inconsistency. Because even when they win, they can't win in the same way. It's a different way each game. Either they'll look good at 5v5 one game, either Igor or Quick will steal a game, or they just play really good defense. They really don't create anything in the offensive zone, and they just, they get one or two chances and they're able to put them in and win a game.
That stat is funny because of the fact that back then the Rangers really didn't have anything other than Prospol, Gaborik, and I think Christensen, who played with him at times, and a power play that was a middle-of-the-pack power play at best. They had one hot streak where Lejko Leak was firing one-timers for them, and then that power play wasn't great again until about 2010, 2019, 2020, sorry. But yeah, it's at the point where this team is just it's not even just inconsistent. It's getting progressively worse. I don't know if they're going to do anything by the end of the season. I would go after Jacob Chikrin. I would trade Keandre Miller or Ryan Lindgren to Ottawa for Jacob Chikrin in a heartbeat, preferably Miller. I think that Ryan Lindgren could benefit from playing lesser minutes and less tougher minutes by playing with Jacob Trouba on that second pairing. I think that pairing just doesn't work. And my concern with Miller is that, yes, while what he could be is an absolute stud if everything pans out, my concern would be, are you going to pass away or pass aside the one real good shot that you have at winning a Stanley Cup because you want to wait and see with Keandre Miller as opposed to going and getting a finished product that's out there that is what Keandre Miller could be if everything worked out for Keandre Miller? That's really what I wonder if this organization is talking about right now. I really do wonder if they're having those discussions. I would have to imagine that Chris Drury is on a little bit of a hot seat himself. I mean, this is his third season as a general manager. And the first year, Eastern Conference Finals, nobody expected that in the first year. The second year, first round exit. This looks like they're gearing towards another first round exit. If I will say this, Drury is probably not getting canned in the offseason, even if they get bounced in the first round, unless Dolan goes and has a complete, an utter meltdown. And I don't know if
they get embarrassed by the Islanders or Devils, I could see it.
What's that?
If they get embarrassed by the Islanders or Devils, I could totally see it.
Maybe. I just don't know if Dolan's going to be as hands-on with everything that's going on with him.
True.
And his extracurricular stuff right now. I'm not going to get into all that, but I do think that if that stuff sticks around and there's more that's revealed, I think he will take a back seat to what's going on with this. And the more hockey savvy minds will really kind of regulate on that, if you will. With that said, I think that if they are bounced in the first round, somebody's getting moved. And I think that it might not even be just somebody. I think there might be multiple names being moved. I think that Peter Laviolette was brought in under the pretense that there were no more excuses for this group with them when they were talking about how, David Quinn was coaching like he was coaching out of a Coaching for Dummies book, Hockey for Dummies book. And then you had Gerard Gallant, who we need help report, and the subsequent shouting match between Drury and Gallant because Gallant refused to make any adjustments and refused to actually put his hands on a team that ended up getting him fired. This is the guy that they can't pull that with. This is a proven winner. This is one of the better coaches of all time. Peter Laviolette's not going anywhere if this team gets bounced in the first round. Players will actually get moved this time around. This is one of those rare situations where instead of, blaming the one coach, players are actually going to get moved. It's going to happen if they get bounced. Now, I'm not saying break everything down right now, do everything, before the playoffs. Give them their shot. Give them their shot. And if they disappoint again, then you will see changes made. I think Barclay Goodrow would definitely be bought out if they fail to do anything. I think Chris Krieder, they will look at moving Chris Krieder. They should have done it in 2019 at the draft. Colorado was interested. Didn't want to give up that 16th overall pick, but they were interested. There was word going around that they were absolutely interested in doing it. They should have done it then, or they should have done it at the 2020 deadline when Toronto was interested.
St. Louis too, right?
I think that was another team too. There were multiple teams that were interested in Krieder at those times. But I will say that the trends that I see that are really concerning are the lack of effort from players in leadership positions, the lack of resolve when they go down by multiple goals. Like earlier on in the year, you were seeing them come back from those situations. The Vancouver game, they went down twice in that game. They came back and they won that game in overtime. The Winnipeg game, they won that game in overtime. And they were on the end of a Western Canadian road trip at that point. They were tired. They were beat, and they still came back and found ways to win those games. They were finding ways to win. Now they're finding ways to lose. Keandre Miller, I've talked about him already. Jacob Trouba, talked about him already. I don't know what else he can do with Miller running around like a chicken with his head cut off out of position, but something needs to change with his play as well, because he certainly isn't helping Miller. Miller certainly isn't helping him. Adam Fox, I had these people telling me that he's playing great defensively. Why is Dave Maloney chastising him defensively too? Why is Larry Brooks coming out today and saying that they need more from Adam Fox? If I'm wrong and I'm just being negative, why are people who are paid to watch this team, who are paid by these organizations to not slander these guys, to not bash these guys, why are they coming out and saying the same things? I just think that this is not a 2-month sample size even. Like you said, this is 5 years. Same coaches over three different coaches over the same 5 years and same group of players. And I will say this, the lack of depth scoring hurts in the bottom six big time. Like there needs to be an injection of skill. But even with that done, what is that going to do to change the fact that this team absolutely refuses to buy in to the coach's system? What's it going to do? Your bromance needs to be broken up. 20 and 93 needs to end. They ended it last season. Gallant actually had the balls to end it for a little bit and put Krieder with Trocheck and VC. And that line worked.
It was Trocheck and Kane towards the end.
And then Kane. Yeah. But VC was the line that they started that with.
Yeah.
So when you have these types of things that are happening and you see these types of trends, something needs to be addressed. And I get it, like that's the one line that's scoring and you don't want to break that line up. But if that line is the only line that's scoring and the other lines aren't doing anything, but that line is also bleeding out high danger chances against because two of the players on that line don't want to have to be bothered with playing a lick of defense, I'm talking about Panarin and Lafreniere, then is that line really working as well as we think it's working? Because they could score, but they're practically giving up just as many goals against as they're scoring. So,
yeah.
I mean, and then Igor, he needs to see a sports psychologist. Something is obviously, clearly wrong with him. And this is not just a 1-year thing. This is not just a couple of months. This is not some short period of time. He has been horribly inconsistent since the 21-22 season ended. And he was locked down. He was Mariano friggin' Rivera in 21-22. He was Mr. Dependability. Okay, you were going to get peppered? Cool. I got you. No problem. I'm here. I'm the last line of defense. I've got this. No problem. And listen, regression was going to happen. Of course, nobody plays like Prime Hasek every damn year. But at the same time, the regression has been so bad and so steady over such a long period of time now that there is legitimate cause for concern. And you can't go and make the same mistake that the Rangers made with Lundqvist and give him somewhere in the range of, 8 years and 69 million or something like that, 70 million, somewhere in that range to 86 or to 80 million, anywhere from an 8.5 to a 10 million per year deal, like they did with Lundqvist, like Bobrovsky and Price got. You can't give him one of those deals. You can't, because you don't know what you're going to get from him year to year anymore. You just don't. And you can't make the same mistake that they made with Stahl and Girardi with Lindgren.
Yeah.
You can't. So they traded Brady Shea. Remember, they traded Brady Shea in the second year of a 6-year deal that they signed because they figured out that Brady Shea was not going to be worth the money that they were going to be paying him going forward. I wonder if they're having those same discussions right now about Keandre Miller, because Chris Drury was a part of those discussions. Just remember that.
I agree. And that kind of ties to the point that I was going to make, because you were saying give them their shot this year. If they're going to play like this, I'm not giving them a shot at the deadline. I'm not buying too much at the deadline at all. Get a guy like Chychrun, fine, because he'll be here next year. Or if you're going to get a guy that will be here this year or next year, fine. But if why would I give up a first round pick and prospects for Elias Lindholm when this is going to be the same shit with the core players? What does it matter? Elias Lindholm's not going to come here and be the magic piece to solve every single little problem with this team. There needs to be way more addressed here. There needs to be way more addressed. And if anything, I'd rather them, if they're going to play like this, go ahead and prove me wrong. Prove me wrong and buy in starting now. Starting now, buy in and prove me wrong. And then we could change the conversation. As of right now, though, if they play like this, rolling into the deadline, I don't think they deserve a shot at all to get rentals on this team. I don't at all. That's just my opinion.
I think there actually might be internal talking to the point where it's like, if we keep up this inconsistent play until the trade deadline, there's no reason to give up these assets.
Yeah.
Why? You're just gonna give them even like you said, you bring in Elias Lindholm, you're bringing a Sprong. What's gonna change? Nothing. They brought in Tarasenko and Kane last year, and that still didn't work. Like I said before, it's the core. Until you go into that core and you start ripping pieces out and changing it, doesn't matter what you put around them. Nothing. It's like a car. You could fix the outside of the car, but if the engine's the problem and you don't fix the engine, guess what? The car ain't gonna work. It ain't gonna start.
Yeah.
So until that's addressed and that's changed, this team ain't winning anything.
Yeah, and people were so quick to point the finger at those two last year, but ignored the fact that Panarin had, 2 points in the playoffs last year? Zibanejad had like 1 or 2. Lafreniere had none. I mean, this is a core issue. This is a core issue. And to answer this question, guys that have their no-move clauses lightened up, like Krieder and Trouba. I mean, a guy like Trouba needs to be moved somehow. What you said on Twitter was so accurate, Phil, that it's addition by subtraction. Because I can't take it anymore. He's a joke of a captain.
He is. I honestly think that in the 30 plus years that I have been watching this team, he is by far the worst captain that they've had. And it's not even close. Like there's Messier. No one's going to live up to that because Messier was just the guy. He changed everything about this franchise. Then there's, I would say, maybe McDonough, right? Like here's Messier, there's McDonough, and then you go down further, and then there's Callahan, and then there's Leach and Yager and so on, and then there's Trouba all the way at the bottom.
Yeah.
All the way at the bottom. And just like I said, addition by subtraction, you can get rid of him and get rid of that cap hit. If they can get rid of that cap hit without giving up too much to get rid of that entire cap hit, that opens up so much for them to do things. So much.
But this comment right here, this is why tearing up the core, this is why they have to do it. Look at what the Jets did
the
this
Panthers
summer.
Too, with the Kachuk trade.
You want to take a look at another trade? Well, a Ranger trade that actually ended up working out. Almost totally worked out, was Marian Gaborik. Yeah. They dealt Marian Gaborik because they realized that Marian Gaborik was not the guy that was going to do what it took in the playoffs. And he just, after a few playoff no-shows, they were tired of it. And they got, Steven right on cue after that. Brassard, Moore, Dorsett. Yep. And Moore ended up being a nice third pairing defenseman. Brassard was their best playoff performer for a good 4-year span.
Center that third line.
Span, rather. Or actually, in 2013, he was pretty good too. So 2013, 2014, 2015, and 2016, he was probably their best playoff performer in that entire time. And Dorsett was a good piece on a fourth line that made a Stanley Cup Finals run. So the Gaborik trade is kind of what we're talking about in a akin to matter.
Yeah. Yeah, they need to make a big trade like that. And that's why I said you trade guys that have their no-move clauses lightened up. That's why I said that, because obviously, I mean, there is a scenario where guys will waive if they're going to be like this. There's a scenario, but it's more likely probably that a guy like Krieder or a guy like Truba is moved out because of it lightening up. I mean, I would love it because I think you could really do a similar thing that Florida did with Huberto and Uyghur. If you find a way to flip Zibanejad and another, like, it might look bad on paper, the trade, and fans are going to hate it, but you get a legit number one center in here, and that could really, really give this team a boost. But I don't know if Amika is going to waive or not.
I don't think Zibanejad will, unless you deal Krider. And maybe if you deal Krider, he becomes upset, and then you move him. But I mean, listen, I'm going to give them their shot. I'm not completely quitting yet, but there are major issues with this team that need to be addressed. And it reminds me of '94 in a way where it looks like they have to make a trade to get that type of culture that I don't want to play that playoff style hockey culture out of the locker room. And I know that a lot of fans were not happy with the trades that were made. I mean, I didn't like the Gartner trade. I thought the Gartner trade was terrible because Anderson, I thought, was useless. But Amonte, a lot of people, I loved Amonte as a kid. Amonte was traded for Noonan and Matteau. Noonan was a force in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. Matteau had 2 double overtime winners against New Jersey. But, I mean, the moves might end up being unpopular, but sometimes they work out. I mean, getting rid of Patrick and Turcotte and then bringing in Steve Larmer, that was another one. They had a ton of depth from the previous 2 years in '92 and '93. So sometimes it's just, you have to make some of these moves, and it just seems like there's an air of stubbornness and refusal to do what it takes to win in the playoffs. And you know what? I wish I could say that I had complete faith that they were just saving themselves for the playoffs, and that, once they get to the playoffs, they're going to pull a 2012 LA Kings and just turn on a switch and just absolutely shithouse everybody. But I don't believe that. I don't. I really don't believe it. So
this is who they are. They're not playing possum. This is who they are.
There's a difference, especially now, because I see a lot of people complaining and stuff, especially on Twitter, and they say, "Oh, but look at all these other teams that are going through rough stretches, like the Kings, for example. The Kings are going through a very rough stretch right now." But the one big difference between the Kings and this Kings team and the Rangers team is when the Kings were winning games, they were winning games the right way with a very good defensive structure in place. The last couple months when the Rangers were winning games, they were winning games like under Gallant in 22 and last year, relying on goaltending, shitty 5v5 play, and bad defense.
And power play.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, I mean, the formula is that they would have defensive lapses. They would have 2 or 3 defensive lapses a game that would come and bite them in the ass, but they would score like crazy on the power play and then maybe add 1 or maybe 2 5-on-5 goals, and they would win a game like 5-3, 5-2, something like that. And now that's not happening anymore. Now you're seeing that this team is just, it's exposed defensively. It really is. It's just the chances, the fact that they are dead last in the league at defending off of the rush. And that's scary, because what that means is that there are multiple breakdowns within the structure that they're supposed to be playing in, and teams are just skating right in and scoring. And it's not like these are all plays where it's like, okay, the opposition has been cycling the puck in the zone for 2 minutes straight, and then they got so tired and a breakdown occurred. No, this is just at any time in a shift, these guys are coming in and they're getting 3-on-2s, 2-on-1s, 4-on-3s, 4-on-2s, and the opposition's scoring. That's a major, major concern.
And even just going back to the special teams point, of them being power play merchants, like we always call them, they're not even doing that. I mean, shout out to Steven, who tweeted this today. He said, since the Christmas break, the Rangers are 5-6-1, which ranks 20th in the league. Their power play ranks 18th with 21.2%. Their penalty kill ranks 28 with 71%. Their special teams are killing them.
The penalty
kill is
gotten progressively worse. And if they go out and they get an acquisition, I mean, I know some of you guys don't like Monahan, but Monahan would be somebody that I think the Rangers would be looking into. And being that Garth Joy has attended quite a few Montreal Canadiens games, I think that would be a guy that they would really take a look at because he can kill penalties and he can win faceoffs. So, again, I'm not saying that they should be full on buyers. I have a feeling they probably will be, just because I don't think that they're going to give up on chasing a cup. And I hope that this team rebounds, but man, this whole stretch has shown that they need so much more than one or two pieces.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, Heedle's skating right now, and as much as I want him back and he would be a big help to this lineup, I'm sorry they have to keep him on LTIR until the playoffs. Like, they have so many areas to address that they have to. They really don't have a choice if they want to make multiple moves. Because if they bring him back and then settle for the bare minimum, what is that going to do? What is that going to do for this team? Your Drury is either going to keep Heedle on IR and make big changes, or he's going to just continue to ride or die with this core.
The one thing I'm scared about with bringing back Heedle, look, would Heedle be a big help to this roster right now? Absolutely. The one thing I'm worried about though is they activate him, right, and with him and Kako be on LTIR for this long, they haven't been accruing the cap space that they would have liked to. So let's just say, and he's suffered already 4 concussions, so he's susceptible to another one. I'm scared that they bring him back. He looks good. We get past the trade deadline. They don't make that many additions to the team, and boom, he takes a big hit, gone for the rest of the season, and we're right back to having Nick Bonino as a 3C. That's
a legitimate concern.
That's the one thing I'm scared about.
That was my concern too, that I brought up.
That's why I want him out of the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm with you. I really do think that they're getting so desperate to the point where they think that he's, you know what? I'm with Steven.
I agree with Steven too. And there was like the report that Monahan's apparently like the Larry Brooks wrote an article. They want a first and a B-level prospect. They're not getting that much from Monahan.
For a guy that you're going to have to shelter offensively and put
who does
bottom 6, no team's going to give that up for that.
Yeah, I don't know who the fuck Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes think they are that they're going to get that much for Sean Monahan. It's so stupid. But Steven's right.
I post on other message boards, and who was it that I was looking at? I think it was Nick Dowd. People were talking about getting like a second-round pick and a blue-chip prospect for Nick friggin' Dowd. Like, don't get me wrong. I would love to have Nick Dowd. I think Nick Dowd would be a great bottom 6 addition. But these Capitals fans were like asking for like the sun and the moon for Nick Dowd and saying that he's better than Lars Eller was at the time of the Lars Eller trade. So they should get the sun and the moon for fucking Nick Dowd. Like, are you kidding me? Like, people are just asinine on these things.
Oh yeah, Twitter GMs are a different breed.
This isn't even Twitter. Oh my god, this is Steven knows where I'm talking about.
Ugh. I mean, regardless, some people are, and yeah, trade for Howden because of the cup-winning pedigree now. Yeah,
yeah. I ain't NR ANEAR. Yeah, he's right on that one. Hughes is absolutely nuts for that demand. He's nuts. He's out of his mind. And listen, I get it. You want to start high, but like a first-round pick for Monahan.
Yeah, no.
I mean, did you mean to say Suzuki? Like, I get that. I totally get that. Did you mean to say Caulfield? Because I get that too.
How do you ask that much for Sean Monahan, but then you get bent over by Steve Yzerman for the McDonough and JT Miller trade?
Thanks for ruining my evening.
God. Oh, that was terrible. That was terrible. And they could have held on to him and traded him in the offseason. They could have. And they could have done the same thing with JT Miller. They were not going to get Rasmus Dahlin. They were not going to get Rasmus Dahlin. They were not close enough. Why did you need to disassemble at that point? Like Rick Nash, Michael Grabner, totally get it. They did well in those trades. I mean, Grabner all he was really kind of like a middle six winger that scored goals and did nothing else but penalty kill. But like, you didn't need to make those trades right then and there.
The condition on the draft pick too is so stupid. Oh, if Tampa wins the cup, they get a second first. Like, no. Why is that the condition?
Why is there a condition in that deal? Like, why? And that's why I don't think that a lot of these guys that expect to get first for these players are going to get first, because when you look at firsts and how they've been tossed around, a lot of them have been conditionals. There were conditionals in Kane and Tarasenko's deals, conditional in Zuccarello's deal, conditional in McDonough's deal. Like, Sean Monahan is not getting a freaking first round pick.
Yeah,
it might be a conditional one that they give a second, upgrades to a first if the Rangers make the conference finals. I don't think Sean Monahan's getting them there, but
that was going to point out though that when we traded for Andrew Kopp, the conditional was that second round will become a first round pick if we got to the conference final. How does that work for Andrew Kopp? But yet it has to be a Stanley Cup one for McDonough and Miller, who are better. It was a better package overall. Just
completely
mismanagement.
Insane. Completely insane. Just poor management. Just they didn't know what they were doing, and that's why they're no longer Ranger management. That's why they're in Montreal. They got sacked for so many bad decisions in their scouting department.
John Davidson's even worse. That guy.
Oh,
he's repeating the same mistakes too in Columbus. Repeating the same exact ones, if not doing worse, honestly.
Yeah, and now he has a coach that's probably even worse than David Quinn.
That's what I was about to say.
I don't understand how Pascal Vincent has a job. I really don't.
Thank God the Rangers dodged that bullet, because I know they interviewed him this offseason. Thank God. Thank God they didn't go with him.
Yeah, and he turned around and I knew something was up when he benched Kent Johnson opening night. When he benched Kent Johnson, I was like, wait, you have a second-year player that scored 40 points as a rookie, and you're benching him on opening night? And then he started benching Gaudreau and Laine left and right. Like it was like, okay, button. Okay, you went back to the well way too many times. And Ryan Callahan was literally on NHL Network when this was happening and said that if you go to that well more than once, likely you're going to lose the entire locker room, and you're definitely losing that player. So I can't believe, Davison hired Babcock. That's another story. I don't even want to get into that, because that's a whole nother can of worms to open up. But you hired a guy that is just benching people who don't live up to what he wants. And who is Pascal Vincent to bench Johnny Gaudreau and Patrick Laine? Who is Pascal Vincent to do this?
Yeah. Who does he think he is?
Like, Lindy Ruff and the whole Alexander Holtz thing is a completely different story, because at least Lindy Ruff has a track record to go on, even though I think his usage of Alexander Holtz is just asinine. But Pascal Vincent blatantly benching Johnny Gaudreau for what reason is going to accomplish exactly what for your team? Move that Philly to left wing so Boone Jenner can play center. Oh God, a middle six forward is more important to you than your future franchise player and his development.
Yep, it's
space brain.
Hey,
the Rangers with Colin Blackwell.
That's a Ranger move right there.
That is absolutely a Ranger move right there.
Davidson's claim to fame is Panarin carrying the Blue Jackets to a sweep over Tampa. That's it. That's all. Yeah, you're not wrong. I will never forget how much he was so excited in that war room when he got Schneider, thinking he was the smartest guy in the room for that one. And now Schneider looks like he's not going to be any more than the third pair defenseman. But he thought he drafted the next Eric Chernak or Victor Hedman. Like, I couldn't stand that guy. I couldn't. And now he's doing the same exact thing in Columbus.
Yep. It's terrible. It's terrible. But I mean, and I loved John Davidson as a broadcaster. He was one of the soundtracks of my life growing up as a kid watching hockey, watching Ranger telecasts, watching ABC telecasts when he was with Doc Emmerich, Fox 5 with Doc Emmerich as well. I just think that he is in over his head. And yeah, the fact that he mentioned Hedman as a comparable for Schneider on draft day, when Schneider, the scouting knock on Schneider was that he was limited offensively, and many scouts had concerns about his offense even translating at the next level. Like, how do you compare that guy to Victor Hedman, who was like pulling through the legs moves at the World Juniors and dominating, probably the most dominating defensive performance we've seen in the last, I would say 25, 30 years, maybe even more at the World Juniors, possibly even ever. I don't think there's anyone that's ever dominated the World Juniors on defense like Hedman has. But yet, Schneider is comparable as Hedman.
Yeah, I had a feeling it was Hedman because I forgot if it was him or Chernak. And then some guy on Twitter I was arguing with, and he's like, no one ever said he was going to be Hedman. I'm like, John Davidson himself said that he was comparable to Hedman. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. But yeah, remember when Gorn drafted Ryan Gropp because he carried the Thunderbirds on a line with Kolazar and Barzell?
You want a funnier one? They drafted Evgeny Grachev because he played with Matt Duchene and Cody Hodgson in Brampton. And they thought Evgeny Grachev was going to be Malkin Light. That was fun.
They drafted Olaf Lindbaum when he wasn't even the first-ranked goalie, and they took him in the second round when they already had Igor in the pipeline.
Ranked goalie, and they took him with a second-round pick.
And he was the first goalie off the board. And you already had Igor Georgiev in the wings, by the way. And, yep, let's just add another one.
Yeah, Jesserman was probably the all-time worst because of the fact that I think it was Ray Clearwater was the scout that was really high on Jesserman, if I remember correctly. And I would tell you right now, I remember, like, because I've been following prospects probably since around 1999 or so. I would say maybe 98, 99. I never was so baffled in my life when they took Jesserman over Parise and so on, because I always thought that if they were going to go NCAA, that they would have at least went with Parise because he was playing at North Dakota, which has been a legitimate powerhouse of a school for over 20 years. And at that point, Parise really kind of turned that school into a big time powerhouse.
Yeah, Miklareth was another one.
Oh God, that was a panic. That was a panic move. And that was in response to getting bounced around by Philadelphia in that home series at the end of the 2010 season when they lost in the shootout in the very last game. That's what that was. They did the same shit in 1995 when they traded away Sergei Zubov and Peter Nedved to Pittsburgh because the Legion of Doom knocked them around, and Messier didn't want anything to do with Zubov and Nedved because they were too soft. That was Messier's doing, but Smith went ahead and did that. So this organization does not learn from its mistakes.
If it makes you feel better, they drafted Kravtsov instead of Dobson or Bouchard.
I said, you know what's funny? The two guys that I wanted at that pick that were available were Noah Dobson and Oliver Wahlstrom.
Me too.
I wanted a goal scorer. I wanted Wahlstrom in that regard. But I knew if they weren't going to take a goal scorer because they took two forwards in the first round last year, I thought that they would take a defenseman, and Dobson was the guy I wanted. So I even said this to Anthony because me and Anthony were at that draft and we covered it live. I tell you right now, I had almost no reaction when they took Kravtsov on that stream. I was literally befuddled because one, nobody really knew enough about Kravtsov because of the fact that he played across 3 different leagues that year, including a junior B level, their minor league team. No, their junior A level, the Russian minor league team, and then the KHL level team. And then I interviewed Sam Cosentino at that draft in person and got to talk to him. And he literally said the same thing and said that nobody understood that pick because some scouts had him going at 31 and some other teams had him as high as maybe 12.
Gordy Clark. And I wanted either one of those guys too. I was beyond livid when both of them got drafted by the Islanders. I was like, son of a bitch. Like it just, although Wallstrom hasn't been much, so
yeah,
at
Wallstrom
least,
I think is going to bust, but Dobson,
yeah,
Dobson
would be,
a puck mover.
yeah, but we have Jacob Turbin set at $8 million, so it's okay. I want Velarde over Elias.
I wanted Velarde over him too, but I was concerned about the back. That was really the concern. Yeah, and Philip Pedal was ranked very low because he was the youngest player in the entire draft. He was the youngest player. But that, again, that was also a reach. Lias Anderson happened because they moved up under the pretense that Pettersson was going to be available at 7. And they wanted Pettersson. And I've actually gotten this information like from people in the know. So I know this for a fact. This is not even conjecture on my part. I know this because I've gotten this from people.
I've heard multiple stories too, like that have came out that they wanted Pettersson.
They were scouting Sweden super, super hard that year. Super, super hard. They had their eyes on Pettersson. Vancouver knew it. They saw the Rangers move up, and they were like, nope, we're taking him. And that was it.
Of course, the one time they actually want a guy who's good, they miss out on him. It's typical Ranger luck.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just bad.
Time will tell with this one. But as of right now, I'm eating crow with Gabe Perreault. But time will tell. We have to see him play in the NHL.
Perreault is going to be a really good player. I think
hope so.
That's the one where they may end up finally really getting it right, and he actually sticks with that team. The only thing that worries me is the skating. The skating needs to be addressed, and he needs to be working with a power skater every offseason going forward. So that's the only thing I worry about. His smarts, his skills, his shooting, his passing are all very good. All very good to great.
Yeah, that's the one thing I noticed about Perreault too when watching the World Junior games. I wasn't really impressed with him during the group stage games, but he came to life in those knockout games. 7 points in 3 games, 3 goals, 4 assists.
Yep.
And like you said, shooting great. His playmaking and passing ability is, I mean, some passes he makes is just like, wow. But yeah, it's the big thing is just skating because especially when you compare him to someone like a Gavin Brindley and you watch him how he can just take over games like that. That's the one thing he's just missing, and that's the one thing why I'm confident he will improve his skating abilities because he's at BC, and we know the Rangers really internally don't really develop skating well, but because he's at BC, that's why I'm confident that he'll find that out.
Yeah. He may have to go outside of the organization to really improve his skating like that. Muscle, I'm not going to really worry too much about because that's just something that's going to happen with age and with him working with NHL professional level personal trainers and dietitians and so on. Edge work and skating are along the same line. Frame is really muscle, so that's kind of repetitive. But Perreault just has to really work on his skating and his defensive play. And I think he's going to be a very good player at the NHL level if he can work on that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm definitely looking dumb with that reaction right now. So much so that I have an apology in the form of my money on the way. That will you guys will find out at some point with that. Would Dobson have been developed the same way in this train wreck organization? I mean, he probably would have got more he still would have got probably more opportunity. Although knowing the Rangers, they would have traded him with the first for Jacob Trouba instead of Pionk, knowing the Rangers. So
I think he would have been fine in this organization. The reason why Keandre Miller is the way that he is because of the fact that he was a forward growing up. He only started playing defense 2 years before they drafted him. So in 2016, he really started playing defense. The fact that he's come as far as he has in that short of time is very impressive. I'll got to give the guy his due. But at what point do you start to question if he is what he is, or if he's actually going to reach that potential? Because that potential is a stud. Like if you want to take a look at somebody that you think he could compare to, like I think if everything works out at his very best, he could be what Seth Jones was when Seth Jones was at his peak. Like that's the type of defenseman that he can be, that long, rangy, fast skating defenseman that can really turn it up, and he can dominate at times if he wants to. Needs to be a little more physical, but I mean, that's something in here. Either you have that or you don't. You're either going to wreck people like Chris Pronger, or you're going to be a cream puff like Tom Pody.
Yeah, that's the thing that pissed me off with Keandre, because I'm like, you have the ability to become a really good two-way defenseman in this league. You have the offensive skill, you have the defensive skill, and we see it when his game's on. He's a force on both sides of the puck,
Yeah,
both sides.
absolutely.
But his inconsistency, and when he's off his game, he's off his game, and you don't even have to know or watch hockey. You could just tell right away.
yeah, with him, you could tell. There's too many guys with their inconsistency. You could tell. A guy like Krieder taking nights off. I have people ask me sometimes, "You think he's hurt?" No, this is just who Chris Kreider is. He just takes nights off. This is just who he is.
You know what's funny? You can tell the people that weren't watching years ago from the people who have been watching all along, because they don't think of Chris Kreider as this guy that's lazy and inconsistent. I mean, I know that you guys know it, but I sure as hell remember when Chris Kreider was a guy that would show up for 2 weeks and then disappear for another 6 to 8, and then would just go off for another 3 weeks after that. Like I remember Chris Kreider's insanely putrid end to the 2018-19 season, where he had 20 goals in the first 38 games. It looked like he was going to score over 40 goals that year, and he somehow ended the season with 28 goals. 8 goals in the final 44 games of the regular season. That goes to show you what type of player that he was. Yeah, and then this is true too from Blake. If someone is asking if a player's hurt, then that's a sign that the player is just not
good.
playing well or is extremely inconsistent.
Yep. And it's the same thing. We talked for so many years how Monty was the last Rangers draft pick to hit 60 points for us until Kreider finally did it in 21-22.
It's crazy that Krieder became only the second rookie since Monty to hit 30 goals in a season, the other one being Pruka in 2006. He was the first player to hit 60 points since Monty in 1993. Like, the fact that this organization has gone almost 30 years without having a rookie player hit 60 points, and went 13 years without a rookie that hit 30 goals, and then their next 30 goal season by a Rangers draft pick didn't come until another 16 years later. It just that's worrisome. I don't know how,
especially considering the top picks that they've had too. Yeah,
I don't know how this level of ineptitude is carried over 4 or 5 regimes of management. How?
it's beyond annoying. It really is annoying. Between that, what were you gonna say?
The last comment from Steven about not having Montreal not having a 40-goal score. That'll probably change with Caulfield, I'd imagine. But yeah, it's going on 30 years for them as well. And no, Anar, you are not the only one that wants Wheeler, Pitlick, and Bonino gone. Like, I can keep Pitlick. I can absolutely keep Pitlick as a 13th forward. But Wheeler is another part of this team's problems due to the fact that, 1, he doesn't skate. 2, he doesn't give you enough offense to kind of offset the fact that his defense is absolutely atrocious. So he's bringing you down in multiple aspects. Nick Bonino cannot do anything other than win faceoffs and block an occasional shot or two. They're guys that just don't belong in this lineup. This team has way too many guys that do not belong in an NHL lineup.
Blake Wheeler, especially, like every single time they play a good team, he's never visible. Like you never notice him except for when he's falling on his ass or just not back checking. Those are the only times you notice him.
Can't keep up.
Yep. What's our opinions on Drury's regime? I mean, I would say it's been like okay. I'd say it's been okay. I don't like how much they gave up for Kopp. I think they overpaid for Tarasenko too, considering he pretty much uses no move clause to come here. Letting Mott go just to bring him back again was just stupid. We could go on about how him orchestrating the Buchnevich trade was just pure stupidity.
Bringing in Patrick Nemeth and extending him to 3 year. I mean, giving him a 3-year deal.
Oh, wow. Patrick Nemeth.
The Barclay Goodrow contract was terrible due to the fact that when you sign a player, you have to win on 1 out of the 3 fronts. If you're going to overpay on AAV, then you got to make sure that you get that there's no trade protection or anything like that, and the term is low. If you're going to go high on term, then the AAV's got to be low, and there's no trade protection. And if there's going to be trade protection, then the other 2 things have to be low, the term and the AAV. And he lost on all 3 fronts of that contract. A high AAV for a 4th-line player, and you gave half of the NHL no trade list to, and then you gave him 6 years on top of that. The only thing that looks worse is the Islanders giving 7 years to Engvall and Scott Mayfield and those deals, because those deals are horrendous. But it looks like they literally took the blueprint of the Goodrow deal and were like, oh, hey, we're going to give this to Engvall and Mayfield. Good job, Lou.
Then you have trading for Ryan Reeves, giving him a 1-year
I was about to bring that one up.
When you could have had Mott at a cheaper price.
Vetrano was a good trade. Braun giving up a 3rd-round pick for him is just they didn't need to give up a 3rd-round pick for Justin Braun. I'm sorry. They didn't. Went over the Tyler Mott thing. Georgiev, they got picks for him. It's whatever. You got something. Niels Lundqvist, you got a 1st for him, but you ended up moving it anyway. Patrick Kane, I can't give him that much credit for that. Kane fell right into his lap. Kane forced his way here. It kind of just is what it is. And the drafting's been pretty solid. The drafting's been solid. We need more time to see how these guys develop, but like on the surface, at least as of now, Othman, Perot, Edstrom looks like a good pick, like those guys. So on the surface, he's done fine with drafting. I just think it's been okay, though, to answer the question. It's been okay.
Jury's still out for me.
I agree.
Yeah, he's been okay for me. I've always said I would have wondered what the team would have looked like if he had control from the start of the rebuild instead of JD and Gordon. Because JD and Gordon, like Phil, like you said, they screwed up that rebuild right from the start. They put Drury in a bad space. So, like I said, I would have liked to seen him where he was at the beginning of the rebuild, what moves he would have done. But yeah, it's been for me on Drury.
Was exactly my problem with the Booch trade. I'm glad you brought this up. I was fine with trading Booch if they got the right return. They didn't. And I was like, okay, at least go out and give Kako and Lafreniere minutes. They didn't do that either. They gave those minutes to guys like Sammy Blay. They just threw him in the top 6. I don't know what they expected to happen with that. They threw guys like Barkley Goodrow in the top 6 time and time again that year. It was just such a dumb trade in retrospect if you weren't going to give those guys minutes.
The reason why it was a dumb trade, though, is because they went ahead and they dealt him away and brought in players that couldn't score and completely obliterated their right-wing depth and didn't give Kako the chance to stick there. Yep. Lafreniere, I understand, because they didn't want to go to having Lafreniere being a right wing as of yet. I don't know why they didn't want to do it. But again, he also came back this year 6 pounds lighter and a hell of a lot stronger. And like you could see it, the confidence in his game is there offensively. Like he looks like he's this close to taking off offensively. Like I think that if he just hits that one stretch where he just starts scoring a bunch of goals and a bunch of his passes just start going in, he's going to get to that. I think next year, I think he's going to be even better.
If he could get the first power play minutes, if he had it right now, he'd be a point per game easily.
I think so. I agree with that. I think he would be. I think he would be the guy. And Lucas Standell is right there. Buchnevich was a big play driver on that line, and they have not been the same since.
And they had a flash in the pan with Vetrano, and then nope, let's let him walk too.
Well, they couldn't bring him back. He wanted too much money for what they could afford given the cap situation. I get why.
The only thing that annoys me about that is that like because of that Goudreau contract,
move Goudreau.
Move
him. He is so replaceable. I'm sorry. They continue to hold on to this idea that, oh, well, you need to have a guy that knows what it takes to win. Yeah, I get that. You do. But when it's an overpaid fourth line center that isn't going to put you over the top and it's going to stop you from making the moves that you really need to make to upgrade the more important areas, then you don't do that. It's like the Islanders. They refused to break up and get rid of that fourth line, that identity line.
Yep.
And they passed up on so many guys and made so many bad moves trying to improve their bottom 6 when they needed a top 6 sniper for friggin' 15 years. What are you doing? Like, you continue to obsess over this fourth line. Oh, well, everybody loves them. They go out there and they hit everybody. Great. You know why they're hitting everybody? Because they don't have the puck. They don't have the puck. That's why they're hitting everybody. So that's what this is akin to. And the fact that they refuse to get rid of Barkley Goudreau and buy him out or move him and send him to somebody for a bag of pucks to upgrade in other areas really baffles the shit out of me because they could have fixed their problems a long time ago. But here they are holding on to this and completing the definition of insanity, which is doing the same shit over and over again and expecting different results.
Yep.
This is what it is. We're going to continue to force this round peg into this square hole, even though we know we have proven facts that we know that this doesn't work, but we're going to continue to do it anyway.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. And people are like, well, why would any team take Barkley Goudreau? We saw them do it with Nemeth. They can. And this is right, too. Like, they needed to play Lafreniere over Krieder in the top 6. I mean, in retrospect, you have to hope at least that when they won that lottery, they were like, man, we should have traded Krieder. You have to hope they at least thought that in retrospect, management. But yeah, I mean, that's where coming into next season, I truly think that what they need to do is they need to move on from Krieder. Let Lafreniere play next to Zibanejad on the left side, have Panarin on the left side, and get right wing depth for the first time in years.
They have not had right wing depth since 2021 when they had Buchnevich. That's how long this has been a problem for. And the fact that they have not addressed this between two different general managers and two different regimes, it just reeks of complete and utter incompetence. I just I don't understand it at all. And that, to me, I would put Lafreniere on line one right now with Zibanejad and break that up and put Krieder on line three.
Yeah.
If they're not going to make trades to send a message, if they're not going to bench anybody to send a message by breaking up these goddamn lines that suck and continue to give you the same piss poor, terrible results.
Yeah, they have to do something, whether it's breaking up the lines or benching someone or both. Like, they need to, some sort of message has to be sent. Or it's not going to matter. And yeah, Steven, you're right. In retrospect, playing a first overall pick in your top six over a 29-year-old perennial 20-goal scorer should have been a no-brainer. Yeah, wrong about that either, but it's beyond infuriating. And yeah, I mean, they're first in the Metro for right now. I
can't stand that. Oh no, he was asking. Sorry, Robert. Sorry. That's my fault. I thought I wasn't looking at it, and I thought it was a comment saying, "Oh, well, they're first in the Metro." Thought it was another one of those. Yeah, well, a child can come back and tell you that. A child can look at the standings and tell you that the Rangers are in first. But I mean, there are so many fans that don't see beyond surface level. I literally had one that was quote tweeting me constantly today, and it literally got to the point where I was just like, "Listen, like, you can't see beyond surface level, and you're complaining about what I'm saying. Mute me or block me and move on." And she finally blocked me, and I was just like, "Listen, I've had it to the point where I get these stupid responses about them being first and calm down and all this other crap. No, this is an issue that these are issues that have been going on for a while. And if you want to call me a Debbie Downer or negative or anything like that for calling them out, you want to say, "Oh, fake fan. Oh, you're ungrateful. You just a Debbie
the
Downer."
ungrateful thing is comedy to me. I'm sorry that other teams suck, so that means that I should appreciate my team sucking less than that team that sucks. You know what? My mistake. I'll be more grateful that I haven't seen them win in my entire lifetime, and they haven't won up to 30 years at this point. You know what? Let me be more grateful that this is the worst original six team historically. You know what? You're right. Let me be grateful for that.
Yeah,
I apologize.
I'm sorry that I actually have standards and I actually want to see my favorite team win a championship.
Yeah, I'm glad the expectations are make the playoffs. If that's the expectation, like, fine.
Oh, but guys, we didn't have 2 11-game losing streaks like the San Jose Sharks. Don't forget about that one.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
And how I like how, oh, you're a fake fan because I want them to address the issues, because I want them to be better. That makes me a fake fan.
Okay. I don't get that one at all.
It's also funny how when you criticize the team, we get called negative, but yet when Peter Laviolette does it, he's right. So why can't we both call out the issues? I realize I'm about the coach, but I could point out the issues and say this is not good enough.
And now the goalpost is shifting. That Valaket was a no-name goalie. Now that's the agenda that they're trying to push. That what would he know?
It's funny. It's the same people that say that type of crap are the same ones that want him to give them shout outs on Twitter and go meet up with them in person and stuff like that. I can't. The hypocrisy there is astounding.
Yeah, I can't take it too. And Steve Dangle was talking about on his podcast. It's like, we're here to analyze. We're not here to be like, imagine spending $300 to go to a Ranger game. You're down 4-0. Oh, good job, Zibanejad, though. Good job. You're trying out there. Good job.
Yeah.
Is that what we're supposed to do? Yeah. I didn't realize we were cheerleaders now. I'm sorry.
No, it's not even just cheerleaders. It's just high school level gatekeeping, and it's gotten to the point where like I've met some great people from Twitter. Like not even just you guys, but like I've actually physically met people as well, and have met up with them at games and hung out with them and stuff. And I've had great times, but there are tons of people on that app that just, for whatever reason, just can't get over the fact that people criticize this team and want this team to do better. Like, why is that? Why are we bad people or even fans? And why would you say that about Steven Valiquette when he's going around and he's giving us the analysis? Like, listen, I don't always agree with Valiquette's analytics. A lot of the times I do, because a lot of the times they match up with what I see. But there are going to be lots of times where the analytics are just off compared to the eye test. But Valiquette's analytics are probably the best I've seen out there.
I agree.
And what people don't factor in when talking about analytics is the fact that analytics only give results. They don't give you context. They don't give you how those results came about. High danger chances, for example.
That was the one, yeah.
Okay, so who's taking that shot? What type of shot is that? Is that a forehand or a backhand? Was the goaltender screened? What led to that breakdown? Where exactly is he taking that shot from in that high danger area? Is the goaltender seeing that shot? Do they have time to set up to stop that shot? How hard is that shot being taken? How quickly is that shot being released? There are so many little nuances that the analytics crew doesn't understand, and they just will never account for, that when somebody posts, chart. That's your argument? Chart? What about that chart? Tell me about that chart. What does that chart tell you? Why does that player have those numbers on that chart? What is he doing? Can't get any of that from these people.
With high danger chances, especially, people like, all right, their expected goals are high because of how many high danger chances they're getting. That just tells me that over time, you're just a guy that simply just can't finish their opportunities. At some points, yeah, sure, maybe it's just an unlucky stretch, but doesn't that tell you that if it's a long stretch of time, especially, that tells me more that you just don't have a finishing ability, and you could be in the right areas all you want. It doesn't matter if you're not going to finish the chances and you're just going to shoot it right at the goalie's chest. Doesn't make a difference.
A high danger chance in the slot is weighed the same whether it's coming from Jimmy Vesey or Mika Zibanejad. Just remember that. It's weighed the same.
100%. And you're right about this, Steven, too. It's like they've played beer league at highest, some of these people, and they're questioning Valiquette now. It doesn't make sense. And sorry, Mika, that we didn't answer your question. Why has Igor been playing so bad? Okay, and then you just say it's the worst podcast you've come across. All right. But we were going to answer your question. To answer your question, the why Igor hasn't been playing well, we talked about it earlier. It's just he's in his own head a lot. He's just in his own head a lot. There's really not much more to it, to be honest. And yeah, the team in front's not playing well enough either, but a lot of it's him too, just not having it there in his head.
His rebound control as well has been a major problem this year.
That's been a major problem for a long time. Long time. His glove there, I know there are people, and the Valiquette actually posted the chart where it showed the number of chances that went in glove side high on him and all the areas, all the different areas. But I can tell you right now, like, rebound control and glove have just been big issues for him. But the biggest issue that I see is that he lets in goals just bad goals at times, and he is just crushed mentally. He is just crushed. And the team in turn, I should say, gets crushed because they're just deflated after that. They're deflated. They can go out and score a goal, and then seconds later, they have one breakdown, and their goalie isn't there to stop the shot. And that's part of why they're playing as poorly as they are. It's because they know that if they have that breakdown, they're all in their heads now because of this, that he's not there because he's just not going to be there to stop him. And I know in 21-22, it was like, okay, we have a breakdown. Igor's there, yada, yada. So they get peppered every game. Yeah, that's sustainable. Good job, Glenn. But every chance that they get on him, he's letting in goals. It doesn't matter what it is. It's a breakaway. It's a pass from behind the net. It's a shot from 60 feet out. It's a shot from 25, 30, 40 feet out, somewhere in that range. It doesn't matter. It's going in. And he's just not making the saves that he needs to make. And Andrew Raycroft was on with somebody, I forget who it was, and they were talking about and he literally said the words, that's something teams say when they're not getting the goaltending that they're supposed to get, when their goaltenders aren't good enough. Well, the Rangers are not getting the goaltending to win games with. Igor Shesterkin simply hasn't been good enough.
Yep, and you hate Igor and you're a fake fan for saying that. But yeah, he's been too shaky, and it's just catching up. It's been the same problems. It's just the difference is that, like you mentioned, Igor's not there to have their back when they have these lapses this time. The same issues were there. It's just that people don't realize it because of the difference in Igor's play now. It's really that simple. And speaking of unsustainable, Matt, you said something that was unsustainable, and it's crazy how it lined up again. How after the Tampa game, you said it was unsustainable to score 5 on 20 shots. They didn't score on a lot of chances against Seattle, or they scored a lot against Seattle on little chances, and they score 1 in the game to follow. It's crazy though how you're fake for saying that that's unsustainable. That just blew my mind, Matt. You were right.
It's funny when you don't have a good forecheck and you actually don't have a lot of time in the ozone, how you're not going to have a lot of shots and not score a lot. But hey, what do I know?
And yeah, the expected goals against Vegas, I don't know if you're saying for or against, they were pretty much at even. A lot of that came in the first few minutes from the Rangers, and then Vegas just didn't give them any opportunities. Also, you have to factor in that some of that was the power play too, and I'm pretty sure Mika had he had to have had one of those high danger chances on the power play when he got stopped with the glove.
The worst part of that game last night was if you watch it, Vegas wasn't even dominant that game. They just couldn't finish their chances, and every time they had to make a defensive stop, they couldn't, and Igor wasn't there to make a save. Literally, they beat themselves that game.
It's what Valley said. They were just not competitive that game. They just weren't competitive, and it's sad too, especially for them playing a team that didn't have their number one center, didn't have their number one goalie.
They didn't have Shea Theodore.
Didn't have Theodore. Yeah, down the competition all year. All year. Even before the skid, look at the losses that they had before, up until November when they were first in the league. Look at the losses that they had. The vast majority of losses that they had up until, I would say, the Dallas blowout were all against teams that were non-playoff teams or maybe fighting for the wild card like Nashville was.
Since the Boston game, a loss to Buffalo, 5-1 loss. They barely beat the Sharks, by the way. A 6-2 loss against Ottawa. 7-3 loss to the Leafs. 4-3 to Edmonton. 4-3 to Florida. 6-1 to Carolina. 4-3 to Montreal. That one was just great. 6-3 to Vancouver. 5-2 to St. Louis. 3-2 to Washington. And 5-1 to Vegas. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't even know anymore what the answer is.
It
I
all
don't.
it all went downhill after that game against the Bruins at the Garden, where they just like Phil, you say the shootout at the MSG Corral, God level movie reference by the way, but
Ah,
they simply flipped the switch. They said, okay, we don't got to play defense anymore. We could just
Yep, we beat
outscore
Boston,
everybody.
so it must work. It must work since we beat Boston that way. We don't have to play defense. That could be optional.
it's
And
just beyond stupid.
yeah, and it's pretty much been that. And people got pretty pissed off at Matt and I for saying it at the end of November, early December. And it's just been now catching up to them. And it's just been a spiral now. And I wasn't even impressed with that Seattle win or the Washington win, and people weren't happy with that. But it's just the truth. It's just the truth. And I'm sorry. I know Igor looked good in those games, but those were some of the worst ranked offenses in the league that they went up against. And yeah, we're first in the division. I'm sorry, Steven. I'll stop. I'll stop. We're first in the division.
Yeah, we can't be ungrateful.
Yeah. There's too many questions with too many answers at this point for the Rangers. I mean, yeah.
I just don't understand how. I don't understand how you're supposed to like look at anything if the response is constantly first in division. Seattle, yeah, they played well against Seattle, but Seattle has been a struggling team. The fact that they lost to Washington twice this year is pathetic. And they
Yep.
lost to Washington without Ovechkin. Like, that's yikes. They lose to Vegas with 7 of their regulars missing and 5 of their key guys missing. And it's constantly, oh, we need to do this, we need to play better, we need to do this, we need to play better. You, like you said before, Evan, talk is cheap. Show me. Stop talking. Leave it out on the ice.
We've heard the talk for years now too. That's what's even more annoying. Like, what happened to? Oh, we're sick that we blew that 2-0 lead against Tampa. You blow 2-0 lead the following year to New Jersey. Oh, that loss really hurt us. We're embarrassed. What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? It looks like the same play from that series. What are you talking about? You're
And the
embarrassed.
and the worst part is it's not even the talk. It's the fact that we actually saw it for the first 2 months of the year. We know that they could play that way if they just buy in. The problem is
They don't
again,
want to.
inconsistency and they don't want to buy in.
They don't. And
Yep.
that's what really concerns me. Like, more so than anything that we have talked about in this hour and a half. That's what concerns me. The fact that, and that's why, like, there's almost a half season left. And I'm hoping that this team somehow just gets together and says to themselves, okay, we have to cut the shit. And this is where we have to start buying in and start being serious if we want to win. When Anthony and I had Off the Post, I think I've mentioned this on air a few times, but we interviewed Washington's entire team, like of their media guys. Joe Beninati, Craig Laughlin, and I interviewed Alan May in person at the draft. Joe Beninati told us a story about how in 2018 that team like their upper management went to the entire team and Barry Trotz and said, "This is your last chance. If you do not win, heads are rolling. Things will change." And Barry Trotz, if you remember the talk around that time, is that Barry Trotz was not seeing eye to eye with ownership, and that's why he left Washington even after winning the Stanley Cup. So Joe Beninati shed a tiny little bit of light on that. and told us this story. And I will say this. This team needs to have that type of reinforcement from above. Someone from above the general manager needs to come in and tell them that this is your last chance. If you do not get this done, things are going to change. And there's no Mike Keenan for this team to rally against, because Peter Laviolette is not that type of guy that just goes and rubs all the players the wrong way. He's not. Keenan was the one who went to the media outlets and told them to make up that fake rumor that they were going to trade Leach for Chelios. And it was believable because back then, we didn't have social media and all this access to the internet and stuff like that. That stuff, it was believable back then. You could get away with that. But there's no coach that has a tie to another team where, they're going to go bring in this player. I can't say that we're going to go trade Mika Zibanejad. There's obviously there's no trade clauses and no movement clauses now, but there's nothing that can be done to stir the team up that way, and that's what scares me the most, because I don't think anything will happen unless something like that could happen.
I was going to say it's going to take somebody that's higher up to say something, because when I hear quotes after games from the captain, from the number one defenseman too on the team, from Chris Krieder, from Zibanejad, and all of them saying virtually the same thing, like, yeah, we had our looks, yeah, we played well enough, and it's not like we're getting ran out of buildings.
What is this, AB?
Yeah, it's pretty much Laviolette said that last night, which pissed me off. But regardless, when you have players saying stuff like that, that's where my hope is it's just so thin, because it's like they believe they're playing well enough. They believe they're playing well enough. And that's what's even more scary to me, is that you hear these post-game comments. Is it going to take a mountain of losses for this team to realize that this isn't good enough? Because I'm telling you right now, if they lose, especially to Anaheim and San Jose, something has to give. Something has to give, because this is just a train wreck.
I don't even think threatening them, like, I mean, not like on a physical level, but even saying like, we're gonna break this up if it doesn't work. I don't even think that's gonna work with this core, because I just don't see that level of hunger with this core. At least like with Washington, you had guys like Ovechkin and Backstrom and John Carlson. These guys like Ovi, who are just competitors from top to bottom, and they'll do whatever they have to do to win a cup. I don't see that same level of hunger from this group and that core.
Yeah, neither do I. And I get that you could say it's media training, but the problem is when you're seeing the same product on the ice with the same mistakes night in and night out, it's hard to believe that's just media training stuff that they're saying. And this is just that they actually believe this is good enough. Reminder that there were players upset Laviolette changed the practice time from 10 a.m. to 8 a.m. Tells you a lot about the mindset. Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah. I just think it's to a point where something drastic needs to happen, and I don't know if and when it's going to happen. I'm completely in agreement with Laviolette. I mean, I'm sorry, Valcat. Wow, confused the two of them. I pulled a mark. Sorry. But I think that a players only meeting has to happen. And you know what? The helmet throw helped turn around last season. Maybe it's not a helmet throw that's needed. Maybe it's a players only season. Maybe Laviolette's already heavy skated them in practice. Like, that's not going to work. It's going to have to come to either benchings, a players only meeting, or line shakeups.
Or a little bit of both, or a little bit of everything.
Yeah, or maybe all of the above.
I was going to say all of the above.
I don't know how I don't know how you're going to fix Igor, though. That's a whole completely different monster to deal with, and I don't know how you're going to fix him. That's going to be tough. It's going to be really, really tough.
That's the other thing that I didn't even mention too. That's just scary. And I'd be very happy if they went 3-0, but what do those wins look like? Because if they dominate those games, yeah, I'll feel better, but will it really matter if they're playing this way and they go 3-0? I'm not moved at them beating a struggling Kings team. I'm not moved that they beat the Sharks and the Ducks. That's just me. Valley called out Lingard's game in the post game too. I mean, yeah, good. I didn't watch the full post game. I just saw the one clip in part, but yeah, somebody needed to go in on these guys, and I'm sure Valakut wanted to say more, but he couldn't just because it was with MSG. I'm sure deep down he feels very similar to the way we feel.
Oh yeah, you can tell. I didn't stay up for that. I went back and I watched the clip, and you could just tell that he wanted to lay into them.
You could see it even after the second period in his eyes, how disgusted he was. And he also said after the second, that was arguably the worst period of the season.
This most recent comment.
This one?
Right there. Oh, yeah. And that's why I brought up the Miller thing with Chychrun. Because I wonder if these conversations are happening right now. I'd imagine that
it has to.
Something's got to be being spoken about right now. Like we're at the middle. All right, so let's see here. Doing a little research. March 8th, trade deadline, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yep.
We are under 2 months away from that. Now, deadline deals, yes, they tend to happen a lot on that day. But from what we're seeing, teams over the last, I would say, 5-10 years, teams are starting to pull more of the Jim Rutherford special, where they're going out earlier and they're going to get their guys because they want them playing more games with that team and being more acclimated. I wonder, and I know it's going to be tougher for this team, but this team has to make a decision on Filipino, as Matt said before. Are you keeping him out and you're going and getting an acquisition? Because they can do that. There's no independent medical examiner that's going to come in and say, oh, Filipino, he has to come back now. There's nobody that's going to do that. Concussions are almost impossible to grade. The only way that he's going to have to come back is if he comes out publicly and says, I'm symptom-free, I'm ready to go, and a doctor then verifies that.
Yeah, and they have to, by the All-Star break, at the end of that, they have to have a decision there. They have to have a decision because what else are you going to do? They're not going to make a trade now. They're in the middle of a West Coast trip. I always felt the earliest they'd make a trade is right after the West Coast trip. I don't know if that's going to happen. I think the All-Star break is the most realistic time because they will have their answer on Hedel, you at least hope, and then you'll get an idea of what they're going to do come this trade deadline. And if they activate Hedel, I mean, what moves could they make? What could we even look at?
It's going to have to be a lot of retention.
There's going to have to be
75%.
Yeah, teams are going to have to double retain on these acquisitions, which means more assets to give up. And if Hedel does come back, I don't even see them making a move until later on then, because I just could totally see Drury being like, well, that's our deadline move, bringing a guy in from bringing an internal guy up and back. That's the deadline move.
So Larry Brooks, I was reading this about an hour ago, retweeted a Twitter user from 3 hours before who said it was time to break up Zibanejad and Krieder. Krieder is invisible 5-on-5, not physically engaged, not shooting, goals only on tips, tap-ins, odd man rush. problem, of course, is that there is not a viable replacement at the moment since they're not breaking up that second line, quote unquote second line. Brooks responds with, would be interesting to flip 93 and 16 to go with a different look. Rearranging the top six furniture does not address issues in net, on D, or with bottom six, but it would present a different dynamic. 20 and 93 were together for 53 games last year, so 29 games that they did not play together.
They have to break them up. I know that it won't solve the other issues. They have to do it though, and they have to break up the second line too. Like you said before, what does it matter if they're scoring at a high rate when every time they're on the ice, there's a goal against, potentially two? What does it matter?
Yeah, they're giving up chances left and right because two of the three forwards on that line do not want to play defense, and that's a big problem. And for all this talk about Panarin and he's having like a Hart caliber year, yeah, his offense is great, but he does not give you anything defensively. And all that stuff is great in the regular season, but
come playoff time, you get exposed. And if teams are shutting down that line, especially, and only exposing them, we're gonna have the same conversation we've had the past 3 years with Panarin.
Same conversation. It's like watching a modern day version of Marian Gaborik or Mike Gartner. And it's funny because they're all wingers. And they were all the play driver and goal scorer on their line, but they were all known as being soft guys who couldn't get the job done come playoff time.
It feels like I'm watching the Maple Leafs in New York with this team. Yeah, just the core guys stay. They're never good enough to get it done, and then they're just gonna be like, fuck it, let's run it back, and just try and surround them with different pieces. Despite it not working, fuck it, let's just throw money at William Nylander again. Fuck it, Mitch Marner, your contract's coming up.
Nylander. Oh man, that would have been bad.
What'd you say?
Thank God they didn't go out. Well, they didn't have a chance to get Nylander because Nylander would have just been. It would have been, we didn't learn our lesson. That's what it would have been.
I didn't think any of that was truth to any of that either. I didn't think they were ever going to be in a scenario to get Nylander. I think if the opportunity came from Matthews, they would have tried to move mountains for that to work potentially.
Well, yeah, you move heaven and earth to get a guy like that.
Yeah, but with Nylander, no, I didn't think it was going to happen. But who knows? Maybe there's a chance with Martin, not this offseason, but the next, for them to make another mistake like they like to do over and over again.
They probably will. I mean, it's Toronto. They doesn't seem to matter who the general manager is. They don't learn.
Yeah. Yeah. Though it feels like we're watching a similar thing here with the Rangers, where they're just continuing to do this over and over again with this core, and the only difference is the Leafs have been doing it for like 2 to 3 extra years, where the Rangers have been doing it for 2 to 3 years less.
And their core group of guys is quite a bit more talented. Like you have elite level talents in Matthews, Marner, and Nylander. Tavares is another story, and then Morgan Riley is whatever. But overall, their group is just, their top end guys are just far more talented than, and they're younger too. Matthews is more younger than Zibanejad. Matthews is 5 years younger than Zibanejad. Nylander is 3 years younger than Zibanejad. Marner is 4 years younger than Zibanejad. Krieder is going to be 33. That's another thing about Chris Krieder. Chris Krieder is going to be 33 in 3 months. He ain't going to get any better. He's going to get worse. He's going to decline.
I'm scared of his decline. The fact that he's able to skate, not willing to right now, what's going to happen when he loses all of the foot speed, or any foot speed he has?
You guys were, I don't even think you guys were alive for this, but he is going to be Tim Kerr when Tim Kerr came to the Rangers. Tim Kerr was one of the best goal scorers and best power forwards of the 80s for the Flyers. Played with Brian Propp when they were in their 80s finals runs in 85 and 87. and Tim Kerr was one of the highest scoring forwards of the entire 80s in terms of goals. When he came to the Rangers, he was a shell of himself and could barely move. That's what Krieder is going to be if he's not going to move his feet right now. What I don't get is why is it that he refuses to move his feet when he has the skating ability to do it? Like,
Yep.
you have God-given talent skating-wise.
And it's wasted.
There was
And just wastes it.
there was a play in the Seattle game. I forgot who the Seattle player was on the ice with him, but the puck goes into the corner, and Kreider's facing the corner, and instead of just actually, moving your feet and skating to the corner to go get the puck and win a puck battle, he just glides there. Just glides. And the guy from Seattle picks up the puck in the corner.
The entire Washington game, too. I was at the game, eyes glued every time he was on the ice to see how little he was moving his feet. And it was just pathetic. And this comment we talked about before, Steven, yeah. Panarin, even though he's playing like he's in his prime, they don't have any forwards in their prime. They had one, and then they traded him for Sammy Blais a second. But yeah, they have no forwards in their prime age-wise, and that's a big issue for a team that went through a rebuild, and it's like right now is more around the time where if they did this the right way, which we talk about ad nauseum, last year, like right about now is when they'd start adding guys that are big free agents in their prime. So you get the prime years while these guys are still on team-friendly contracts and they're young, and you get a good mix there. Instead, you have all these guys who are 30-plus years old on anchoring contracts, and the young guys are first taking, like, a guy like Lafreniere specifically more is first taking, like, the big step forward now and still has another step to take, which I believe he will, but still, like, that's another year of prolonging this. Kakko, I love what he does away from the puck, and I love that he's a good possession player, but what does it matter when you're not creating chances with that possession? I get you could fault that more to Kreider and Zibanejad at times, but at some point, he's got to start capitalizing on his opportunities too. Filipino, I mean, we don't know more. Like, we saw his breakout year last year. Who knows what would have came this year? I expected such a big year from him. That's what sucks. And then on the back end, though, I mean, a lot of these young guys, it doesn't even. I mean, Miller's just. We talked about him ad nauseum this stream, and then you have Brain Schneider, who he's nothing more than a third pair defenseman. He's nothing more than that. And then Fox has been inconsistent too. This roster is just so poorly constructed in terms of just not having enough guys
The very last comment from Steven, I can actually kind of attest to this. Not my testimony, but a friend of mine. So a friend of mine actually ran into a few of these guys at an NYU bar. And I'm not going to name any names or anything like that, but I can tell you that some of these guys, complete party animals at that time. Complete party animals.
I believe
and it kind of made sense as to why some of them didn't work out.
I have a feeling it's similar here right now too.
You know what?
I'm not going to speculate too much, but I wouldn't be shocked, is all I'll say.
But it's like I mean, Phil, I know even you said with like JT Miller, how JT Miller when he was here, he always partied instead of taking his off-season regimen seriously. And then when he finally got traded that second time to Vancouver, he finally took it seriously. And now look at the player he's become.
I with Miller, what he said was that he didn't take his off-season regimens as seriously as he should have, and he he also the second trade to Vancouver really woke him up. Really, really woke him up. So with I can tell you right now, sometimes it is a kick in the rear end that really wakes these players up, and that changes scenery and some other extracurricular things that do come into play that change an outlook for a player and so on. But I can tell you this: some of the players that are not here, that their dismissals from the team kind of woke them up and turned them into the players that they've become. So I can't.
I mean, you could see it with some of them.
I can't speak to names. I can't speak to anything like that. But there's definitely. I feel like from the top of the organization going down, it feels like there's maybe something that needs to be done in order to kind of change these things up. So
that's why I feel it's still going on. And before people comment too, because I know it's going to come, oh, well, these players shouldn't be training 24/7. You shouldn't expect that. No one's saying they can't live their lives, but there's a difference between finding a balance and just prioritizing one over the other. There's a difference there. Like there needs to be a balance.
I think that I think that there is maybe too much of a laissez-faire attitude with some of the younger guys, and that's probably part of why the development isn't working. They also don't put their young players in positions to succeed, and that's really what's hurt them. And I've said that to Steven over the years, like for many years now. But I could tell you this. They've had a problem for many years with getting these players to come up as young players and succeed. And it's not because of media pressure, because this team is not the number one team in the media spotlight in New York. It's other reasons. Take from that what you want, but it's not because of media pressure.
Wait, repeat what you said one more time.
This team has had so many failures with developing young talents over the years. And it's not because New York, oh, it's a big media market, ton of pressure, and so on and so on. It is a big market, yes. But in the grand scheme of things, the Rangers are the fourth covered team. Like actually not even the fourth. Hockey is the fourth in terms of
they're literally just above the Islanders probably, and the Nets, because who cares about the Nets?
The Giants,
the Knicks,
the Knicks,
Yankees,
the Yankees,
the Mets.
I would even say the Mets. Yeah.
And then after that, if you want to take a look at the Rangers,
and that's probably the Nets and the Islanders.
Yeah.
So whichever order you want to go with those two.
Yeah, and that's what the media coverage rankings are, and it's not because of that. It's for many other reasons. I did just get food though, so I'm gonna hop off.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah,
I don't know how much longer I'm gonna keep going. I probably will for a bit more.
Jeez, almost 2 hours, man.
I didn't even realize we were at that mark.
So, but yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining in.
Yeah, this was fun. We should definitely do something like this again. I definitely enjoyed this, and the fact that we kind of put this together as late as we did, kind of spur of the moment, it actually worked out pretty well. So
yeah, we got to get Mark next time for the layups.
So you could roast Mark for half the session, you mean? Yeah.
Maybe longer than that.
Yeah, I probably about 60%, 65% of the session, you guys will just be roasting Mark. But
yeah, Phil, I'm going to start with you. Do the Rangers want to start buying in? Actually, that's not a layup. Should the Rangers buy in? I'll rephrase it. Should the Rangers start buying in?
Yeah, because do the Rangers want to start buying in is definitely not a layup, because we don't know what the hell's going on with them. But that would be a layup.
Yeah.
Easy.
Just get the GIF. Get the GIF.
Do they want to win?
Damn GIF.
Do they want to win the Metro?
Dude, no, I think they want to lose the Mets.
No, they want to make it interesting.
No, they don't want anything to do with the President's Trophy or the Stanley Cup. They want to just lose in the first round again and get knocked out in like a 4-game sweep. So
Anthony killed me with that. And no, the Islanders want to make the game interesting. In fact, they want to blow the leads in the second period instead. Guy, when he calls him our guy.
When you call him
That's
a silly individual, it's hilarious because like everybody knows that he is just a silly individual. So it's just beyond fitting. I can't. Yeah, I can't. Oh my God. He called him JT Miller.
When he has a couple drinks in him at the Stadium Series, I wouldn't be surprised if it happened.
I mean, Joe Micheletti called JT Miller TJ Miller like God knows how many times back in the day. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Yeah,
I do. He was a walking meme for that. Oh, well, here's TJ Miller. I'm like, Joe, like he's been with the organization since 2011. And it's like 2017, and he's still, or 2018, and he's still calling him TJ Miller. I'm like, what is going on with this guy?
Mark would fit right into that booth. You had Sam call Adam Fox the other night Ian Fox. I caught that one too.
Do you remember when he called him Adam Fox in Calgary?
Yeah, I remember that one. I remember last year when he said glove by Zibanejad when Igor made a save.
I'm pretty sure he called Nolan Patrick last year Nolan Ryan.
Yeah, he called him Nolan Ryan. Yeah,
he did. I remember that.
Mark would fit right into that booth.
Oh man,
save him a spot.
Oh God, I love it. I can't wait because he's gonna get roasted to no extent, and like there's just gonna be no end to like the possibilities that you guys are gonna have with him. Because
he has no idea.
He's gonna set you guys up for like everything, and it's gonna be glorious. That's all I can say. It's gonna be glorious. So, but thank you again. I really do appreciate it, and I will talk to you guys around, and we'll figure out something again for something else soon.
100%. Thank you again for coming on.
See you, Phil.
Take care, everybody. Let's go Rangers, even though they kind of suck right now.
But they're in first.
But